Hello, everyone. My name is Mr. Ritzik, and I just wanted to make a video for you today, giving you a little bit more information as far as some of the main areas that we will be getting into this course, and then where we will be heading in the weeks ahead. Um, One thing that I do want to tell you, and I do really want to stress this to you, I've gotten repeated emails from students, over the weekend, where's my work, when are you going to be done with it, and so on. And I wish I could be done with it more quickly, but that is not the case. Ordinarily, if you submit by Friday, I will get your work. I typically get the work done by the following Monday. This summer it's going to be taking longer. I usually only have, 4 or 5 of these technical communication classes, but this summer I have a total of 7. So, you don't have to be a math person to see, like, if it takes you 10 minutes for each person and there are 170 students or something like that, it takes time. So, if you send something to me, give me a little bit of time to get back to you. And so, like, if you sent me something by Friday, June the 3rd, and if you don't get a response from me by, Friday, June the 10th, then of course you can ask me. But don't keep on sending me emails, because then that it requires more emails for me to respond to, and so on. So I will definitely get to you, and as we go throughout the summer, I will try to give you consistent feedback. Sometimes I give it verbally, sometimes I give it in writing, using track changes, or sometimes I'll just give you a list of comments or feedback. So, but whatever the case, like I said, please be patient, and I will do the best that I can for you. I wanted to mention that I am in the process now of reading your information sheets. Assignment 1, which is on what 2 or 3 of your friends or family members or colleagues or so on thought of you. And then assignment 2 on writing effective email. I did send over the weekend an example of an email from a student last summer. And when you send me an email, include your first and last name, and then your class section number, so like ENG 162WB, and then what the nature of your email is about. Now, if you have something that's really, really pressing or important, you can say, please read this immediately, or something like that, and I will. But sometimes over the weekend, some people said, well, can you respond to my email saying you got this? And I can do that. I just read them as I go through them. But like I said, I do get back to you. Now, if there is a problem and said, it didn't come through, you can always resend it. So that's not a big issue at all. The one on what your friends and family members think of you, that's a good one to practice a number of different skills. So the first one is to encapsulate or summarize, so the people you interviewed, who they are, how long you've known them, how you've met them, and then overall what they had to say. And of course, practicing using quotes and using examples. Examples are really, really helpful. And some of these that I read, there were some very, very good examples about the people that were interviewed gave examples about about you. So for this week, you have to do the discussion board 1, and you just have to go into the discussion board, and that's under tools, and then you have to create a new thread. So for discussion board 1, what you're doing is you are revising a series of sentences, and from A to I there, and your goal or objective is to use one sentence of 20 words or less. And I did send out an MP3 file on that last week, but just to kind of refer you back to that, I wanted to mention that in chapter 17, writing clear sentences goes on page 636. And even one of the things that you want to learn there is, use a more trimmed down style of writing. And when you're writing in this class, as much as possible, try to use the active voice. So, I observe the crane topple over from too much wind. So if you say the crane toppled over from too much wind, like who observed that? So it's better to use the active voice. And the other thing that they talk about a little bit in here, like on page 639, is conciseness as far as how to shorten down wordy phrases and so on. And then on 643, they talk about being accurate in writing, and that is helpful. Throughout this class, one of the areas that I really want you to work on is your word choice. And so, like, if somebody said, there's a thing on my leg and it concerns me, what is that? So if you say, I was out hiking in the woods over the weekend and I noticed a red mark on my leg that is expanded to the size of a 50-cent piece, and there looks like spider veins going down my leg. Well, maybe you got bit by a Lyme tick and you may have Lyme disease. So that's more specificity. So I try to get you away from using words like thing or things, some, a few, a lot. And so try to use more specific language. And also in technical writing, you are allowed to use estimates. So, like I was at my brother Tom's house over the weekend, and if I said the water was high in Slippery Rock Creek, that's okay. But if you say, the water seemed to be about 8 feet deep when it's typically 2 feet deep, that's, more like it. And of course, you can use figurative language in technical writing. You can use like, you can use as, so that's a simile. You can use a metaphor. You can compare two different things. You can explain something without using, like or as. I had a student in class before that was a bodybuilder, and it seemed like his biceps resembled a cantaloupe. So that's really helpful. And of course, you can also use an analogy. And an analogy is you explain something more complex in a simpler way. So anyhow, I wanted to tell you about that. With discussion board 1A, that involves a case that you have to read from the textbook. Now, when you read the one from the textbook, I want you to also, in the first, you have to do 2 paragraphs. In the first one that you write, try to sum up some of the key facts. And something you want to learn in technical writing and in good writing overall is use of inductive reasoning, okay? Inductive reasoning is that you give the key facts, and from those key facts, you draw the conclusions. And good attorneys do that. So deductive reasoning is where you just give your own opinions and you draw a conclusion from opinions. And of course, that's not as strong. So I just wanted to tell you, try to review, or for this discussion board 1A, to give some of the key facts that are stated in the textbook. So that's really, really helpful to do. Don't start off like the first question with I feel, I think, I believe, and so on, so try to use some facts. And then in the second response, as far as some of the solutions, you can draw some of the conclusions from those facts. One thing that you cannot do in this telecommuting case that we do from our book is, like turn on a video camera at random times during the day, because you definitely don't want to do that. Even from these online classes, I can pretty much tell within about 2 weeks who's going to make it and who is not based on the work that they do. And then I can also see how often a person is logging on to the course. I can run these reports. So, that helps. Now, the last thing that I wanted to tell you, actually 2 items, is when you do the evaluation of customer service for this week, you're going to have to pick a place where you currently work or have worked, and you're going to have to evaluate using 3 or 4 points of criteria. So you can look at it from a customer, from an employee, or you can look at them from both. But the key point that I would tell you is try to use specific examples that happen on a specific day. So like I had a student, and she worked at a really good hair salon. And this woman came in, and she was going to be getting married in a day or two. So she like tried to dye her own hair, and it didn't turn out right. She went from brown to blonde, and it looked greenish. So they really put a great deal of time and effort to make this woman look really, really good. Not only her hair, but they also, when she came in, like for a wedding day, they did makeup and so on. And I like that example. And let me give you one other one. I had a student named Kevin Gall, and he worked for Sarah Auto in Greensburg. and they're a Toyota and Lexus specialist. But he said that the owner of the repair shop, what he would do is, when they weren't busy, he would have them fabricate using welding and create like this part of a tailpipe or like an exhaust system. And so instead of charging a customer $1,800, that was a real common problem with a Toyota Camry. What they would do is they would cut out the rusted piece and they would stick this other piece in, and it was only $180. And I thought, boy, that's a good example. So take a look at some of the examples and assignments. There's a couple of really, really effective ones in there that you should look at. And then you may or may not be having this white textbook. Most of you probably will have the brown one. But whatever you do, look at the chapters in this book, especially as you go through. I can't even begin to tell you how important chapters 1 and then chapters 4, 5, and 6 are, and then like 8 with instructions. And then there's also a chapter on report writing, which I believe is chapter 10. But you bought the book, you really should use it. It's advantageous to you. And this is a real good class. I think that you'll gain some benefits from it, not because I'm teaching it, but because some of the strategies and techniques that you practice will help you as a student, help you as a professional, and then as a consumer, and even as a volunteer, like if you're working with your children or a youth group or Habitat for Humanity or whatever. The skills that you develop you can definitely use. So that's it. Have a good week. Thanks.